Good morning, and thank you for joining us for our session, Parent Involvement and the IEP Process. Presenting today are myself and Mrs. Katrina Moore, and we are both ESE Program Specialists for Policy and Procedures. Joining us today in the background are Milana Biseglia, Christine Mensch, Contessa Robinson, and Danielle Barney. They are here to help us as you have questions or concerns. We are asking that you will go ahead and put those in the chat box so that they can respond. So throughout our session today, as we are reviewing the information we have to present, we ask that you utilize the chat to place your questions as well as respond to some interactive questions that we have throughout our presentation today. So let's talk about what our purpose is here today and what we would like you to learn as parents. By the end of today's session, parents will be able to navigate the IEP process, understand points of contact, and learn ways to ensure meaningful participation throughout the IEP process. We would like to be sure that you are aware of ways that you can participate before, during, and after IEP meetings. I'd like to review our session agenda today. And what we are going to review are the topics such as what is an IEP? What is the evaluation process? Who are the points of contact? And how do you, as a parent, prepare for a meeting? The purpose of this session today is to understand those items. What is an IEP? The evaluation process, learn points of contact at the school and district level, and how to prepare for an IEP meeting so that you can be able to provide meaningful parent participation. Now we're going to explain and dive deeper into what is an IEP and what it is not. What is an IEP? An individualized education plan is a written legal document that is developed for each eligible child with a disability who requires specially designed instruction to receive a free and appropriate public education. According to the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which is also known as IDEA, public schools must create an IEP for all children needing special education and accommodations. From the age of 3 until graduating from high school, students may be eligible for an IEP. IEPs are meant to help address each student's unique challenges and educational goals. It is a legally binding document that guides the school team in providing a free and appropriate public education. Your student would be eligible to receive an IEP if they are found eligible for one of the 14 exceptional education programs. IEP stands for Individualized Education Plan. An IEP describes the special education instruction, supports, and services that a student needs to thrive in school. IEPs are part of pre-K to 12 public education. An IEP must include a statement noting your child's current performance and status, your child's annual goals, which are updated every year, support services, accommodations, or modifications that will help your child succeed in the classroom and on standardized assessments. It also must include how progress will be measured and transition plans for after graduation. The IEP is a monitoring tool that is developed with a team of individuals who are knowledgeable of the student's needs. It should also address educational needs of a student with a disability who has been found eligible to receive special education and related services. It is used to implement an educational program and specialized services. The IEP is a commitment in writing to provide services and resources necessary to enable a student with a disability to receive needed special education services. Your child will have a team who creates an IEP, including you as a parent. You play an integral role in the plan's development. Other people on the team include the student, when appropriate, school district personnel, local education agency representative, which could be a designated person by the school principal or district. They are also called an LEA, and you may know that person as a staffing specialist on your child's campus. The team also is an ESE teacher or service provider, related service personnel, the evaluation interpreter, which is most typically the school psychologist, general education teachers, and any other individuals who have knowledge or special expertise regarding the child. In addition, you as a parent can request others to join the team as well. This could be a physical therapist or a translator or any other person that you invite with knowledge or special expertise of this child. I'd like to explain a little bit about the purpose and the function of an IEP. The IEP meeting serves as a communication opportunity between parents and educators and enables them as equal participants to jointly decide what the student's needs are, what services will be provided to meet those needs, and what the anticipated outcomes may be. The IEP process provides an opportunity for resolving any differences between the parents and the school concerning the special education needs of a student with a disability through the IEP meeting. The purpose of the IEP is to address the specific areas where there is a gap between student ability, student performance, as indicated by the testing that was completed and the evaluation process. There's a wide range of possible services a student might receive. Everyone on the IEP team gives input into the short term and long term goals that are observable and measurable, and the best way to assist the student in getting there. The IEP is revised annually at a minimum in order to update those goals and evaluate the student's progress. I'd like to share a little bit about what the IEP is not. The IEP is not a daily lesson plan, an evaluation report, a contract, a comprehensive curriculum, a document that cannot be amended. It's important to distinguish what IEPs are and are not. An IEP is not a daily lesson plan, but it does cover items that should be covered throughout the year. An IEP is not an evaluation report. While the IEP may contain information from an evaluation report, it is not the evaluation. An evaluation report describes your child's strengths and needs. The information from an evaluation report is used to help write the IEP. An IEP is not a contract. It does describe things that have been determined will help your child, but it cannot guarantee that all the special help and instruction will be helpful or cause the child to be successful. An IEP is not a curriculum. It relates to special considerations within your child's overall education. And finally, an IEP is not set in stone. It's a fluid document. As your child grows and learns and changes, the IEP will need to reflect those changes as well. I'd like to check your understanding of what is an IEP. I have a few questions, and question number one is, an IEP is a contract between the parents and the school. Is that true or is that false? If you'd like, you can use the chat to type your answer in the chat box. Again, question number one is true or false. An IEP is a contract between the parents and the school. The answer to that question is false. An IEP is not a contract. It is a dynamic document that can be adjusted at any time during the year if there is data to support a change. It's a fluid document. We can always come back to the table to amend as needed. Question number two. An IEP is a legal document. Is that true or false? Again, an IEP is a legal document. That question is true. An IEP is a legal document. It outlines the services and supports that must be provided to a student. And finally, question number three. An IEP is created only by the student's ESE teacher. Is that true or false? I'll give you a few moments if you'd like to put that in the chat. The answer to question number three is false. Parent input is as valuable as the teacher and service provider input. Creating the IEP is collaborative. It's a very collaborative process. The teacher creates a draft, so there's a shell to work from, and the input provided by the parents and service providers are utilized to develop that IEP. The development of the IEP is a collaborative process. It involves open communication between the parent and the school regarding the individual educational needs of the student. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Katrina Moore so that she can talk to you about the evaluation process.
Good morning, everyone. Let's take a look at the evaluation process and what that entails. The evaluation process. The assessments can measure areas such as cognition, academics, and language skills, along with social, emotional, and developmental findings. A special education evaluation should include information such as student records, observations, multi-tiered intervention data, work samples, and state and district test results. The evaluation process can be confusing, overwhelming, and frightening to parents. We are going to walk through the evaluation process so that you are more prepared and comfortable with this process, as it can occur as an initial evaluation or even a reevaluation after your child has already been identified as having a disability. The evaluation process, there are 7 critical steps in determining if your child has a disability. In this section, we will review the evaluation process. Step 1. Your child is identified as having a suspected disability. Step 2, with parent consent, your child is evaluated. Step 1 is that the school and or parent suspected the child has a disability. This initiates the evaluation process. If you suspect your child of having a disability, you should bring your concern to the school staffing specialist or administration. When you bring your concern for your child to the school's attention, the school will schedule a meeting to discuss your concerns within 30 calendar days. If it is determined that an evaluation is needed, you will be asked to provide your consent during the meeting for an evaluation to occur. Step 3. After evaluations are completed, eligibility is determined. And step 4, your child is found eligible or ineligible for services. So in step 3, after all evaluations have been completed, a meeting is scheduled and eligibility is determined. During this meeting, the evaluators or evaluations are reviewed, and the team, including the evaluators, come together to discuss the results and determine if your child is eligible for services. If your child is found ineligible for services, you will receive a prior written notice within 10 days of the meeting date. During your meeting, your child is found eligible for services. So, what's next? Step 5, an IEP is drafted by the team. Step 6, with parent consent, your child will begin to receive services. Step 7, your child's progress is measured over time with at least one meeting per year. So in step 5, if eligible, a draft IEP is created and further reviewed in a meeting. This can be completed during the eligibility meeting. After the draft is reviewed, you would then need to provide your consent for your child to receive services. Once you have signed consent for the provision of ESE services, your child services will begin. Your child's progress will be measured over time with at least one meeting per year, which is referred to as an annual review. It's important to know that as the parent, you can request an IEP meeting at any time. So let's get some questions. Question 1. A student cannot have formal evaluations completed to determine eligibility for an initial IEP without parental consent. Let's take a moment and think that one over. A student cannot have formal evaluations completed to determine eligibility for an initial IEP without parental consent. Okay, let's see the answer. True. Parents must provide consent in order for the school to conduct evaluations on the student. Let's try the next one. Question 2. A draft IEP is provided to the parents before an annual review meeting. Let's hear that one more time. A draft IEP is provided to the parents before an annual review meeting. Take a moment. Okay. True. In most cases, A draft IEP should be completed and sent to the parent in advance of the meeting unless it is an initial eligibility. Question 3. An IEP meeting can only be held once a year. An IEP meeting can only be held once a year. All right, let's see. That is false. An IEP meeting must be reviewed and revised no less than annually. However, a parent or the school may request an IEP meeting at any time. Good job. Let's go and take a look at who your points of contact can be. There are different roles within a student's IEP. Who should your points of contact be? Well, the school-based personnel include the school staffing specialist, ESE teacher, general education teacher, the administrator over ESE, or the school principal. There may be multiple professionals on your child's IEP team. So who should your main point of contact be and what for? When wanting to schedule an IEP meeting, obtain documents, or have general questions about the IEP and process, you will want to contact your school's staffing specialist. When you have questions about your child's progress on their IEP goals or general questions about their IEP services that can be answered or discussed outside of an IEP team meeting, you can contact the ESE teacher. Any questions about the general education curriculum or classroom information, you can contact your child's general education teacher. And finally, every school will have an administrator over ESE and, of course, the school principal that you can also contact when or if you feel it is necessary. Now, how can you prepare for a meeting? As a parent, how can parents better prepare for an upcoming IEP meeting? Let's go through some points to consider. Take a look at our parent prep checklist. You can request all reports in advance of your meeting, read the IEP and reports thoroughly, gather your own supportive materials, prepare for the IEP meeting day and after the IEP meeting. Preparation is key to being an effective, confident advocate at your child's IEP meetings. Those are a few things you can do to prepare for the meeting. Request reports. Before an IEP meeting, team members, including the parents, should be given all the reports in a reasonable amount of time prior to the meeting to ensure you have time to fully read your reports before the IEP meeting. You can make a request in writing asking to be provided with all your child's reports in advance of the IEP meeting. The school team will provide copies of pertinent documents prior to the meeting for you to review. However, if there is something you would like to see outside of the draft IEP and evaluations, you may also ask the school for copies. Next, read the IEP and reports. As IEP meetings are often very stressful, the IEP document itself can be a reminder of a very hard day ahead. It's no wonder that parents don't always want to read the IEP and evaluations, but it is a good idea to read them. On top of reading your child's reports, Go over your child's accommodations section in the IEP. This is a list created by the team to tell teachers how to make accommodations so that your child can access the classroom lessons and make appropriate progress doing their classwork or homework. It may include accommodations like providing seating near the teacher, breaking down assignments, or directions repeated and clarified. Parent participation is crucial for the appropriate development of an IEP plan. IEP meetings can sometimes be overwhelming, and to ensure your meaningful participation, it's important to read the reports ahead of time. Write down or send your questions to the school prior to the meeting. Some of your questions may be able to be answered prior to the meeting, while others may need to be addressed during the meeting. The next one is to gather your input. You may bring anything you feel will help fellow IEP team members learn about the student. The reports from your child's therapist or a private evaluator. Anyone who works with your child can be asked to write a letter or report about their work with your child, including, but not limited to, tutors, after school teachers, and even caregivers. Recommendations to the IEP team by suggesting strategies that work for them and services that may help your child reach their goals. It's important to know that information gathered in order to conduct an IEP meeting is not limited to just school data. Information from private therapists or outside tutors can be reviewed and considered for development or information within the IEP. Preparing for your meeting day. It's important to prepare for your meeting day. Write any questions you have down, provide your parent input prior to the meeting, and bring your copies of the information to the school provided to you prior. After the meeting is over, make sure that you read through the entire document. If there is something in the IEP that is incorrect, you must move to correct it immediately. Throughout the school year, please make sure to stay involved by reviewing your child's work samples. Sharing struggles and successes with your child's teacher will help with communication and ensure your child is not frustrated. Sharing strategies that work will help your child be successful in the classroom. Let's do some question and answer. When wanting to schedule an IEP meeting, obtain documents, or have general questions about the IEP and process, who do you call? Give that one some think time. When wanting to schedule an IEP meeting, obtain documents, or have general questions about the IEP and process, who do you call? Let's see the answer. You call the school-based staffing specialist. Great. Question 2. How do you request for reports and other pertinent documents for an upcoming IEP meeting? Let's mull that over. How do you request for other pertinent documents and reports for an upcoming IEP meeting? Next is make a request in writing, asking to be provided with all your child's reports in advance of the IEP meeting. Next one. True or false? Bringing input and reports that could help the IEP team understand the student better is not allowed. Let me repeat, true or false? Bringing input and reports that could help the IEP team understand the student better is not allowed. Everyone ready? Let's see. False. Any input or information that can be shared with the IEP team to better understand the student is allowed. Okay, well, this slide shows you all of the program specialists for the district. Each learning community is supported by one program specialist. You may hear from any of us when students transfer between schools or when coverage is needed for a meeting. Be sure to take note of your program specialist's name and contact information. And last but not least, the contact information for our Senior Director of ESE Policy and Procedures, Mrs. Tawana Lee Wins, and our Senior Administrator for ESE Policy and Procedures, Mrs. Danielle Barney. So let's take some questions. If you have questions, please place them in your chat box and we will be happy to take a look and get them answered. Let's see, Amanda, do we have any in there?
I don't see any questions in the chat, but what I think I would like for us to do is to review some key takeaways from our session today. So, the purpose and goal of our session today was so that parents would be able to navigate the IEP process, understand points of contact, and learn new ways to ensure meaningful participation. So, we covered a lot of that today. And I really want to make sure that we are aware that the IEP process is a collaborative process and that document, the IEP that is developed, is not end all be all. We create it and parents have to just take what we create. We want to involve our parents in that process. It is a fluid document. We also want to highlight those key points of contact in the schools so that when you have concerns, you're taking them to your school staffing specialist so that they can address those concerns at the school level. And again, you also have contacts at the school like the ESE teacher, that gen ed teacher, the assistant principal over ESE, that's usually who supervises the ESE department, and of course the school principal. And when you are not getting to the point that you feel your concerns are addressed at the school level, you can reach us, the program specialist, and we are here to support you and the schools to make sure that that IEP process is collaborative. Additionally, we want to make sure that you take away how to be a meaningful participant. And what that means is making sure that you're participating in that development of the IEP, providing input, being able to review what is provided to you from the school, whether it be reports, an IEP draft, or even providing an input form or reviewing those from your teachers so that when you go into the IEP meeting, you are prepared to review the data with the team. And I think that covers most of all that we intended to provide to you today.
I would like to um, also point out a key it's that it's not a document that you can never change. While yes, you must review and revise it at least once annually. The IEP is a fluid document, and you can absolutely come back and request a meeting with the staffing specialist and the IEP team to review more frequently, but it must be reviewed at least once over the course of that year. Um, and again, to echo what Ms. Jones stated, you do have us here for support. You may also reach out and complete a parent support ticket. They will make sure to get it over to your program specialist if you prefer to do things that way. Would you like to add anything else, Amanda? Or I think that we have come to a conclusion.
I agree. I think if there aren't any more questions, then we'll go ahead and end today's session. And we thank you all for joining us today. And we look forward to collaborating with you. Thank you so much for joining with us.